All right, today we're going to dive into a book that, honestly, pulls at a thread I think a lot of us feel, but we don't really talk about it much, and that's our relationship with work. We're going to unpack David Frayne's The Refusal of Work, and let me tell you, this book challenges some of the most basic, fundamental assumptions we have about our modern lives. Frayne kicks off his book with this quote from Henry Thoreau, and wow, it immediately hits a nerve, doesn't it? What a desperate haste to succeed. I mean, that feeling of a never-ending hustle, a world where the train of work just keeps rumbling through your dreams, this just perfectly sets the stage for everything we're about to get into.
Okay, so let's start with the problem itself. And this isn't some abstract academic idea, right? For so many of us, it's a daily reality. It's that feeling, the one, of being stuck. Kind of like you're running on a treadmill that just keeps speeding up and up. And here's the thing. This feeling, it's not new at all. Way back in 1972, this writer, Studs Terkel, he went and interviewed over 100 American workers for his book Working. And his conclusion? It was stark. He found that for a whole lot of people, work wasn't about fulfillment. It was about daily humiliations, and get this, a kind of violence to the human spirit.
Terkel's interviews are just filled with voices like this one. I mean, listen to this. A steel worker who felt his entire identity was just reduced to a number, like a prisoner. Wow, that quote just crystallizes that sense of dehumanization, doesn't it? This isn't just about being bored at your desk, it's about feeling like you've literally lost a piece of yourself.
So there's actually a formal name for this whole experience, a term that thinkers like Karl Marx famously wrote about. It's called alienation. And really, it's just that feeling of being disconnected from the work you're doing, from your own creativity, and at the end of the day, from your real self. And like we said, this isn't a new idea. Philosophers have been wrestling with this feeling of disconnection for centuries.
Okay, so this brings us right to the core idea in Frayne's book. Why? Why does this feeling of alienation still stick around? Well, Frayne argues it's because we live in a society that has put work at the absolute dead center of, everything. He calls it a work-centric society. So what does he mean by that? Well, it's basically a social order where getting a paying job isn't just about how you get money to pay the bills. No, it's how you get respect, it's how you get a sense of purpose, it's how you get your entire identity in the world. And man, this idea, it runs deep. I mean, think about it. From the moment we're kids and someone asks, so what do you want to be when you grow up? Our entire lives are shaped by this stuff. Our whole education system is geared towards employability. Our social status totally hinges on our job title. And you know that dreaded question you get at parties? So, what do you do? It's the perfect example. It's the main way we size each other up and figure out where we all fit. But here's the big question. Was it always like this? And Frayne's answer is a hard no. Absolutely not. This obsession we have with work, it is not the natural state of humanity. It's a very specific product of history. So let's do a quick little tour through history, right? If you go back to ancient Greece, work was actually seen as a curse. It was something that got in the way of living the good life, politics, philosophy. Then, the really big shift, as the sociologist Max Weber famously pointed out, came with the Protestant Reformation. All of a sudden, work became a moral duty, a calling to prove you were worthy in God's eyes. And this Protestant ethic, as he called it, basically laid all the cultural groundwork for industrial capitalism, which turned work into what he called an iron cage of constant competitive struggle that we're all still in today. But this wasn't just a change in ideas. Oh no. The Industrial Revolution brought with it a new and honestly pretty brutal discipline. You had bells, clocks, fines, all of it, used to force a totally new rhythm onto human life. That old, more natural, fluid sense of time was just thrown out and replaced by the rigid logic of the factory floor. And it's all perfectly captured in that famous phrase from Benjamin Franklin, time is money. Okay, so this whole history brings us to a really strange and, frankly, frustrating paradox that's right at the heart of our modern economy. Just think, we have technology today that would have seemed like actual magic a century ago. It can produce this incredible abundance with way less human effort. And yet, so many of us feel like we're working harder than ever before. How does that make any sense?
I mean, just look at this contrast. Back in 1930, the famous economist John Maynard Keynes made this stunning prediction. He said that by our time, right now, the whole economic problem of scarcity would be solved. We'd be working maybe 15 hours a week. Instead, what do we have? We've got this totally bizarre split where some people are overworked to the point of complete burnout, while others are desperate to find enough work just to survive. And then you have tons of people stuck in jobs they feel are completely and utterly meaningless.
And this is not a small problem by any stretch. The source material points to a 2013 estimate from the UK's Trades Union Congress, and it put the number of unemployed people at nearly 4.8 million. It's just a stark reminder that even in our super productive society, a secure way to make a living is, well, it's far from a guarantee for a lot of people. So you can see this imbalance clear as day. Instead of all this amazing technology leading to less work for everybody, the benefits have been spread out really unevenly. You've got overwork on one side, persistent unemployment on the other, and this huge rise in precarious work, like zero-hour contracts. They're all happening at the exact same time. It's just a deeply unstable system.
Okay, so if the current system is so full of these paradoxes, what's the alternative? Well, this is where we get to the work of a philosopher named Andre Gors, who came up with a pretty radical new way of thinking about this whole problem. He called it time politics.
So time politics basically says, hey, this is a choice, it's not inevitable. It asks a really simple but powerful question. What should we, as a society, do with all the free time that our technology and productivity has created for us? Do we just automatically keep plowing it back into making more stuff and generating more profit for a small group of people? Or could we consciously decide to turn all that productivity into more free time for everyone?
So you can really see the two different roads ahead here. The path we're on now, the market logic path, is all about creating endless new consumer needs just so we can create new jobs, often with really terrible consequences for the environment. But the other path, the political one that Gord's was talking about, is to just stop and say enough. Let's make a collective decision to work less, share the work that actually needs doing more fairly, and just free ourselves up to do other things. See, Gors' whole goal was to shrink the time we have to spend on that first category, work we do just for a paycheck. And the reason for that was to radically expand the time we have for the third category, autonomous activities. And these are the things we do not for money, not just to survive, but because we love them, for their own sake. We're talking about art, learning new things, playing, building a community, all the stuff that actually makes life feel rich and meaningful.
And so this all leaves us with this one big question, which is really the central challenge of the entire book. It's asking you to step outside the logic of this work-centric society for a second and just imagine something different. If you didn't have to work for a wage nearly as much, if that became a much smaller part of your life, what would you do with all that freedom? It's a really powerful question to sit with, and it's at the very heart of what it means to even think about the refusal of work.